Thanks for listening to another episode of the Lifeguard Project podcast. Today, I interview Steve Long. Steve was a California State Parks lifeguard and maybe the only lifeguard who never passed lifeguard training, yet was chosen by leadership to excel and fast track into leadership roles throughout his career. Steve worked in the golden age of lifeguarding in California and ended up as a supervising peace officer for California State Parks in the San Clemente area. Steve and I discuss not just lifeguarding, but some of his personal philosophy on life and much, much more. As always, thanks for listening. Well, Steve, we can get straight into it. Thanks for coming in. And, I've heard your name echo through the halls of the state parks folklore for a while. And it's cool to have the time to spend, and having you come up here means a lot to just talk shop and talk about lifeguarding. I think having people that have done it as a career holds a lot of value in reversing that Baywatch mindset, or that people think it's just this, when they kind of write off the idea of lifeguarding. And so I look forward to digging into what that's brought to you. Mm-hmm. Where did you grow up, and where did you first think about the idea of even becoming a lifeguard, if that's even applicable? How did that all get started early on?
I was in a military family. We moved around. Colorado Springs, I learned to swim in a pool. Was kind of enthralled with it, started swimming competitively. At age 11, we moved to Southern California. My dad got out of the military. We landed in Anaheim. But I recall as we drove out here from Colorado, and we went through Arizona, came up through San Diego, and we're driving along the coast, and I just enthralled with there's the ocean. And we'd been near the ocean before. My dad had been stationed in Monterey. I'd been dipping in the ocean from the time I was 1 in Okinawa, then in Pacific Grove. They said I was fearless, running into the water and playing. But we started camping at Doheny in San Clemente in 1960. Saw people surfing, and I said, I'm going to do that. Where I lived in Anaheim, the school district lines went right down the middle of the street I lived on. I went to school in Placentia at Valencia High School ultimately, but the kids that I grew up with in that neighborhood, we had a community pool. We were all enthralled with this idea of surfing. We started going to Doheny. My very first time there, somebody had a hollow wooden box paddleboard that had been made in the 1930s. That was my first experience going out on that. And I had seen pictures and watched what people did. And after that, just saved my lawn mowing money, bought a surfboard, and somebody's parents would take us to the beach. We'd go to the Huntington Cliffs, River Jetty primarily, and Doheny. Every opportunity we were surfing. Swam, played water polo in high school, along with the same kind of crew of kids. And once we got driver's licenses, was on. We were every opportunity we could, and started exploring further. Got to surf Killer Dana before the harbor went in.
Oh, wow.
Camped every year, Doheny and San Clemente. San Onofre, you had to be a club member to get in there. But down what we called the bluffs, we'd park along Old Coast Highway. There were little goat trails down, surfing, nobody around. I'm a goofy foot, discovered Cottons, and that became my go-to place. And so surfing was my passion. Swimming, water polo. I could have played polo at any of the big colleges, Irvine, UCLA. I was that level. But I ended up going to UC Davis in Northern California, and they were competitive, very competitive now. I mean, they annually make top 10 in the nation, but they were building program.
What
But
was your sorry to interrupt? What was your father's job in the military?
he was a nuclear physicist. He was a specialist in nuclear weapons and defense for, uh, well, he was attached to NORAD, North American Defense Command, when he was in Colorado Springs. Um, in 1960, every 4 years when you're in the military, you get rotated to a overseas assignment. And in 1960, his next assignment was going to be South Vietnam as an advisor. And he was looking ahead, really didn't want to be apart from the family for 2 years, and especially Vietnam was just in its earliest stages. And it was not a place that the family could go to, which like Okinawa had been. And so he resigned his commission, though he stayed in the reserves and eventually retired as a colonel in the reserves. But with his specialty, he was in big demand in what we call the defense industries. And that's brought us to Southern California. So he very supportive of my swimming and surfing. And I was actually on a path to go in the military. I had a Army ROTC, a 4-year scholarship, full ride to any place in the nation that had ROTC. And I was very, I would say, naive and neutral as Vietnam was shaping up. And my intent was that I would go to school for 4 years and either go to graduate school, possibly veterinary medicine, because that's what UC Davis, they have that veterinary school there. And so I was sworn into the Army Reserves the first day that I arrived at school, but I was not the best student, and in order to get into veterinary school, you got to be a top of the class all the way. I did well in my military science classes, and I did well in water polo.
What was the early? Who was responsible for you being around? Like, it sounds like you were around the water a fair bit, right? From a young age, being at the beach, supported to be there, swimming lessons early on.
Mm-hmm.
Was there someone that was instrumental in that being a priority, or?
No. It was just I was enthusiastic about it and took to it, and from the very beginning was a strong swimmer. Mm-hmm. Good coaching in high school and going to clinics that actually learning stroke mechanics and applying it, and and again, this little nucleus of guys that I hung out with were all we did the same things. We played water polo, we surfed, we swam, and we did scouts together, which was a great experience. I really look back on that, learning skills at a young age. It's a lot different now. Kids, it's not that they don't have the opportunity, but I think junior guards fills that gap in large regard at the beach. And in fact, for a while at San Clemente, our actual, at the state beach, our junior guard program was also a scouting troop. Interesting transition as we did that. But no, it was just my own internal passion. Davis is a long ways from the coast. Didn't have a car my first year. Second year, I had a old Volkswagen Beetle, and I was driving to Bodega Bay, Stinson Beach, and had to surf in the Russian River mouth when I probably shouldn't have. Sharky waters and nobody up there. But I'd go down to Santa Cruz, San Francisco, and I was the only surfer that I knew in the area. But
back in that day,
yeah. Anyhow, a couple years of college, and I realized that I was not on track to graduate in 4 years, and I was becoming disillusioned with the concept. By then, the Vietnam War was really rolling. But I decided I can't keep taking the scholarship money. I have to be honest and let them know that I'm going to take a break from school, and therefore they had 4 options, which was they could make me pay back everything. They could prosecute me legally if they thought I'd defrauded them. They could order me to active duty immediately because I was in the reserve, or they could choose to do nothing. And I had a personal face-to-face contact with the commanding officer and said, whichever route you have to go, I'll accept that. You order me to active duty, I'll go tomorrow. But I can't, in all honesty, keep doing this. And he said, we'll get back to you. 10 days later, he said, we appreciate your honesty and candor, and you're free to go. It was the time when they had the draft lottery. My number came up 362, so I wasn't going to get drafted. And I took some time off and went surfing. And kind of reevaluated and decided I want to go back and do school again, but this time with a different attitude and approach. I did go back to Davis, played water polo one more season, and it was kind of the time of I got there in 67, 68, 69. We're talking the summer of love.
Mm-hmm.
Started going to San Francisco and the Fillmore and concerts, and I guess I thought I was a hippie for a while, and still surfing every opportunity I could, and I dropped out of school again. Had met my future wife, Jan, and that summer she went to Hawaii just with a bunch of friends, and ended up staying over there, getting a job, and I ended up following on over and spending the summer on the South Shore, surfing when I could, and picking up work pretty steady. Just enough subsistence, and then came back. He went back to school at Davis. I came back and kind of at loose ends, doing odd jobs. And my former roommate from my first year had gone straight through on his education and wanted to become a fisheries biologist. He had a degree in fisheries biology, and he was going into Sacramento to the resources building, and they have job announcements, and he's looking for the flyer that when the exam for fisheries biologists would come up, and you have to take a civil service exam and then an interview, and you get on a list, and as opening comes up, they interview, and Wiley, who was in there, on the bulletin board, it said state lifeguard, permanent position, located all over the coast. And at the time it said, no experience necessary, 18 years of age, but must have knowledge of first aid and life-saving and aquatic skills. And so he pulled the flyer off and brought it to me, and I said, I'm filling out the application, and I did. Little time passes, I get a message that, okay, there's going to be a written exam in Sacramento. State Parks is part of what's called the Resources Agency. So I show up in Sacramento, and it's this big exam room, and there's probably 40 people in there. But I'm looking around, and again, it said no experience necessary. So I'm looking around, and there was a real odd group of characters that were in there. I took the exam. I'd had advanced first aid. I'd been a pool lifeguard. I had WSI and water safety, Red Cross, and had actually been pool lifeguarding at Davis for a bit. Had made a few rescues on my own on a surfboard. Passed the written exam. I get called for an interview, and that was my first encounter with Bob Eisner. He was on the panel.
Was that up in Sacramento?
It was in Sacramento, okay. Yeah. And
will you, for a second, just describe in your own words Bob Eisner to those that don't know the lore? Just a quick before, because I know where you're going with this.
Well,
what was Bob Eisner like back in the through your eyes?
He was gruff, and he was skeptical as he was speaking to me. I mean, I could describe him, physically, kind of medium height. Stocky. It almost reminds you of Popeye.
And I heard too, just he always had a cigar and very kind of rough.
He smoked. He drank. He'd chew a cigar now and then.
This is one of our original state parks lifeguards. Right?
He was the founder of California State Lifeguards, 1950, right here at Huntington State Beach.
Yeah,
he had. Previously guarded for, I believe, both Newport and Huntington City.
And it was after he got out of the military, right, that he kind of started.
Well, yeah. I mean, as a youth, he had done some lifeguarding. Then he was in the military, and he came back out. And the actual timing, I think he came back and guarded again for Newport before he became a candidate for the state to put the program together.
I just imagine an interview with him with like a FBI investigation room, and he's smoking a big cigar, and there's one single light down the center. And that's what I imagine it. And all the folklore I've heard through the state lifeguard world.
Well, I'll tell you, you may have heard this story about someone else doing an interview with him, and Eisner's following an ant crawling around on the table, and he's almost like he's not listening to and the guy finishes answering the question, and Eisner looks at him and takes the end of a pencil with the eraser and just smashes the ant in front of him and just kind of glared at the guy. Anyway, my first meeting with him, and I had no idea who he was. There were another high-ranking individual from state parks, and virtually all of the administrators, park rangers, they'd all been in the military. Mm-hmm. They had the buzz cut, and the state parks was kind of fashioned on a military camp or base. The parks situated all over the state, and so I answered the questions. They were surprised that I surfed. I knew what a rip current was. That was one of the first things that, and in Sacramento, out of however many people actually made it to the interview, I had pool experience, and I had the surfing experience, first aid experience. So I got on a hiring list, and at the time, seasonal lifeguards were making more than permanent lifeguards. It's just that the seasonal could work an unlimited number of hours, and the permanents were salaried. And so a lot of seasonals didn't want to apply for the permanent job.
Because they could rack up the overtime throughout the year.
Yeah, and they were still young and not thinking in terms of maybe making a career of it. So many folks, it's a part-time gig that they'd make money so they could go surfing or could go skiing or whatever. But so we get in a hiring list, and there were only like 14 or 15 names on it for the whole state. And right away they start sending me a notification that there's an opening and do you want to interview? And I wasn't ready yet. I was still early part of the relationship with my then future wife. And thinking in terms that I might do this construction thing with my other close friend, like a brother, and you're only allowed to turn down interview opportunities twice. If you turn it down a third time, they throw you off the list. So right away, even though I was all the way down at the bottom of the list, I was number 13 out of 15 or whatever. I got my first one and I turned it down. There's a stipulation that you can put your name inactive so they won't offer you any more positions. And then somewhere down the line during the life of the list, you can put your name back active. So I put my name inactive and waited a year and began doing the construction. And I just said, yeah, this is, I don't want to do this. I think I want to do the lifeguard thing. And I started investigating. Okay, I got to get, do a seasonal, get hired as a seasonal. But this is the month was September when I decided I'm going to do this. Put my name back active. Right away, I get called for an opening at Silverwood Lake in the local mountains here. They'd just built the reservoir and they'd put in recreation facilities. And it was a new place. They were putting a permanent lifeguard up there along with some seasonals. So now I'm back on the active list. So I've got to go for an interview up there. And I go, and there's Bob Eisner again. And it vaguely recalled, we were interviewed up in Sacramento. And I was there. I answered all the questions, told him what I've been doing. And that I was in great shape from surfing and doing the concrete. My hair was long, and before the interview even started, he looked at me and says, "You'd never work for us with your hair that long." And I said, "Well, I'd gladly cut it." I did the swim. There was a seasonal lifeguard there that paddled for me, did the swim in great time. Finished the interview, and they said, "Well, we'll get in touch with you." But again, I didn't have any experience. They ended up hiring a guy that had 1 year of experience. The seasonal lifeguard that was there went on to become a park ranger, but he also in his career, he's one of those guys that came from the lifeguard side of things, park ranger, but he made rescues, and that's not uncommon. A whole lot of places
that state parks does
in the state park lore. But anyhow, the guy they hired had 1 year of experience, and he ended up with a very notorious negative career. But it was Eisner, when he told me that I wasn't selected, that I had done well, he says, "But you need to get some seasonal experience." I said, "Fine, I'm going to tryouts in February, and I'll go to work as a seasonal." So I started swimming every day so that I'm in top shape, and lowest times I had ever generated. I was in great shape. Planned to go to lifeguard tryouts, and the like 2 weeks before tryouts, it's early February. I get a call for an interview at Huntington State Beach, and well, okay, I'm primed. I'm ready to go. I show up for the interview, and they got 3 people showing up. That's what they always, bring 3 to the interview. So windy, nasty cold day in February. I go down to the, they have me swim the buoy first thing. Swim a 14-minute in choppy, windy, whatever. Come in, I'm hypothermic and shivering. And they had me do a run, swim, run. And then they take me in for an interview. And
the usual.
Yeah, shivering, but I answer all the questions. And I said, hey, I'm planning on coming back. I realize I need the experience, that you guys don't hire somebody without experience. So I'll be back for tryouts. And, if I don't get hired now, well, maybe, there's an opportunity down the road. Even if you didn't get hired, it didn't mean you were taken off the list. It just, you couldn't turn down interviews. So I go home and I'm still doing construction. We're in a tight little gap. 3 days before the swim test, I tweaked my back, and my back is spasmed. There's no way I could swim. The next day, I get a phone call, and it's Bill Kramer, who was the chief lifeguard at Huntington State Beach, and he's real kind of indecisive in his conversation. You took that interview, and he'd sat on the interview panel, and he said, are you really sure you want to do this? I mean, would you really want to do this? And I said, yeah, by all means. He said, well, okay, we've never done this, but we're going to hire you, and you'll go to training with all the rookies, but you're going to get hired right now, at the end of February, as a permanent. And then you'll go to they had a Easter training. And so you'll be going to training with all the rookies, and then you're going to have to, we're going to treat you just like a rookie lifeguard. You're going to sit in towers, and there's going to be a lot of training. But he was shaking his head. But what I found out later, they're supposed to have 3 people to interview. One guy didn't show up, and the other guy didn't do the swim. They had me. They had one choice. So again, the stars lined up.
Sure. Sounds like a lot of stars, just even from the very beginning of your life. Things were lining up.
The serendipity of my old college roommate pulling the flyer off and handing it to me. And just, again, stars lined up.
I feel like a lot of people that end up lifeguards for a long time in career, I'm noticing a pattern that they have this origin story that's not so, oh yeah, tried and true, this is what I was going to do, but it ends up like that, weird, like they almost get selected through these weird occurrences, let's call it, right? Which I thought was pretty interesting. And then wasn't it, it was something about it being busy or something where you didn't even end up going through the training, right? Tell me about that.
So it's the spring break training, Easter break, Easter week used to be consistent, and all the schools would be out and the beaches would be packed if the weather was nice. And so I'm in training and doing everything with all the other trainees, the swims, the drills, and I remember back in the day, we didn't have masks. You did the water extrication and fireman's carry, and then you with your partner, you put them down and you had to give them the breath. So,
you had to actually do mouth to mouth.
Mouth to mouth, yeah. My remember it well. My partner on it, we still laugh whenever we see each other.
Sure. But it was such a unique time in the origins of lifeguarding, where it's just this kind of borrowed structure from the military, and there's a lot of kind of cowboy style stuff that's going on, but still a very structured approach and real training, but just such a unique origin story for how lifeguarding got started, and definitely with state parks too, is a unique approach, right?
The whole again, Eisner brought the military, and also that was typical. Every agency, they had inspections. You had uniforms, and you stood at attention, and you wore the CPO cap, and anyhow, we're going through training, and we're on the last day of training. It's 80 degrees, Santa Ana winds, and it's spring break, and the parking lots fill up. They don't have enough lifeguards for the towers. And I've got to take the written finals. That's, the final day. And Kramer comes into the training room and tells Eric Emery, send Long over here. And they said, we're putting you in a tower right now. We need bodies out there on the beach.
Yeah.
And I got put in a tower. And my very first day, got sent on a rescue. I was standing up, looking at it. Yeah, those people are in a small little rip, and the unit guard pulled up and he says, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, yeah, they're in a little rip." And he says, "You're going to go," and I did, and so I was sent on my first rescue. And after that, it was like, okay, you don't hesitate. You just go find out in the water, and so they never called me back in to do the tests. And from that point on, I was put in towers during the week. I mean, we're back still in springtime, and there's not. So I'm paired up with typically an older seasonal. And there were only two permanents there at the time.
So you might be the only state lifeguard that never passed training that went through an entire career.
I am, without question. Yeah, I see Silvestri and Ed and Bruiser. I've seen the records. There it is, blanks there on the. So, I get paired with the older.
Sure.
Seasonal supervisors, we called them back then, and I with the guys with the most experience and just soaking it up like a sponge.
But isn't that really where you learn anyway?
Yeah.
The training and all that stuff is the initial check boxes and the initial drills and procedures.
Yeah.
But really, this job is so much about having these role models and picking up like, hey, I'm looking at this rescue until they go, that's it, go.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pick it up through this oral culture and this spending the time around with the people who've done it before. They pass on that essence of what it is to lifeguard, right?
Again, I was so blessed to be with these guys, and at the time they were already legends. They'd been there 6-7 years. Some of them were, but they didn't want to be permanents. They all had some other gig. It was a part-time thing for them, but
as with most lifeguards.
Yeah. So I got the benefit of that, and then I was put in every hot tower. I worked them all, but I was being scheduled such that I would get rapid experience. And as we got through the month of June, and I'm doing that, then they started putting me 3 days a week in the unit as the number 2. And by August, I was in units entirely, but I wasn't supervising anybody. I was a permanent lifeguard, but in name and status. But I was also heavily mentored and had just a huge download of experience, that a typical tower guard's not going to get, in the course of a summer.
Like fast.
For me, it all got packed in. Off season, I get sent to what we called cop shop. I go to a Selimar and do my law enforcement training, which at the time was 6 weeks.
And this is something that most people don't know that.
3 weeks there, 3 weeks off, 3 weeks back up there. Mel Tubbs and I went together and became really close to Mel. Mel was the boat operator and kind of the elder statesman, along with Eric Emery and a couple other guys. But Mel was already legendary operating the Surf Watch. And there was an expansion starting to happen at Huntington State Beach. We had Bolsa Chica as well. Bolsa was always, windy and not much action unless there was really a legitimate, Southern Hemi type of swell. But the city of Huntington, the state had been, the state actually had title to the land from the north of the pier all the way through the bluffs, but the city had been operating it for forever. And the city wanted money, and this history repeats. LA County in 1995, the same thing. They wanted more money from the state. The state says, no, we're not giving you money. We'll take it over. We'll come and operate our own beach. So there was an influx of cash. We suddenly hired like 4 more permanents, started having a second rescue boat built. And Gary Harvey, who was a permanent and the one who paddled for me in the swim, he was the relief operator. Mel was the primary operator, and Gary was the relief operator. And he knew this other boat was coming and a promotion as well. And he wanted to set himself up to be the operator and get that promotion as lifeguard supervisor. Sorry about the runny nose there. So in this expansion, there is also created a lifeguard supervisor position for the beach. And Gary, again, being the most senior permanent there, the other one, Marty Armstrong, had just resigned. He decided he wanted to do something else. But Gary had to take the promotion to guarantee that he actually was a supervisor and would then end up operating the other boat when it came. So they needed a relief operator. And here are these other 4 guys that have got hired, and they've all got 4 or 5 years of seasonal experience. None of them wanted to be a boat operator. And I raised my hand and I said, hey, I'll do that. So here I am, the rookie, the fast first year, go to the cop shop, go to scuba 2 weeks with at Scripps with Mel again, and now I get to be with
operating.
I get to be with Mel Tubbs.
Wow!
And trained to be a boat operator.
And this was all within a span of how many years?
My first it's my second summer.
Wow!
Leading into my second summer, all this has already happened.
What a wealth of experience!
Just like
fast track, just immediate
downloading so much
as a second year lifeguard and getting all that.
Yeah,
because that origin of getting hired on as a permanent, and they wanted to. It
was all timing.
That's super cool.
I started.
What do you think was, looking back on that time, what do you think in that 2 years was the most valuable things that you learned as far as that fast track and just getting all that so immediately? What do you think was, because it shaped, obviously you did the career for a long time.
Yeah.
What was that first 2 years, the biggest standout thing for you in that time when you were downloading all this information?
Gosh. Well, it was all on kind of a plane of just, I couldn't believe going to work every day and just, getting to this knowledge and experience. That spring with Mel was just again, I was in heaven. I mean, I'm learning from the master. And again, being a surfer, I had the kind of eye that it takes to be a good boat operator. I always, whenever I selected operators, I wanted guys that understood the surf and really could spot. But that experience with Mel, then 2 days a week, I'm actually operating the boat during the summer. But it was, I think, during that second summer was the first drowning that I worked on, and that one really had an impact. It brought it home how real it is. I mean, I'd seen some very serious medical aids and near drownings, but we had a drowning, and I was actually. God, I think I was training with Mel. I was on the boat with them, and the person had gone down. It was a day where there was a double break, and the Huntington City helicopter spotted the body between the two breaks from above. Mel had me suit up, get a scuba tank on, and be ready because we knew we were doing a recovery, but. So it was probably actually only in 8 or 10 feet of water, and I didn't need to have scuba, but we didn't know where we were going to end up. So it was, and he put me in between breaks, but then he had to go out and put me right on the body, and I brought it to the surface, and I had the dilemma of, do I try and take him back out to the boat because it's a packed day? Do we want to have the scene on the beach? And
was the person viable at this point? Or had they been down for too long?
They'd been down half an hour at least, there were several tower guards. Again, fuzzy on the actual development of the call and how, but the family knew somebody was missing. Somebody had seen this guy disappear, reported it. Anyhow, I had support from the beach, and we decided rather than trying to swim him out to the boat, we're going to take him to the beach. Which, again, now suddenly you've got a large event to manage on the beach.
Yeah.
And I'm dragging a tank, on my back, and we get the guy up on the beach, and the one tower guard whose location it was falls apart. I mean, he'd come out and helped him, but he'd never seen death before. And heavy impact. So there's all this going on, and we get the victim removed to the headquarters, and I shed all my gear. I'm just in my trunks, and I'm the permanent, and so now I'm dealing with the family. And it was my first experience.
How old were you at this point?
25. Or let's see, 25. I maybe just turned 26. I didn't get hired until I turned 24 24 in May, the year that I got hired.
And you're a second-year lifeguard with all this crazy rapid fast track.
Yeah.
And here you are now, Mel's dropped you off, and you're the point of contact for this death that just happened as your second year, and you're in your mid-20s, which in lifeguard terms is, I guess, somewhat of a mature lifeguard in a way, right? How was that then?
Very philosophical about death, and also, well, I don't know. I kind of go into my even back then, just that, okay, I'm in charge here. I have to be the rock, and just was very compassionate with the family. Made sure that they got someone to come help them with the process, and stayed with them until additional family came, and all the arrangements were made. Um, but again, well, you're the ranking guy, yeah, even though it's second year.
Yeah.
So that maybe it was like a catalyst in terms of like, okay, yeah, I can do this leadership role. I'm not adverse to it, and I had, I guess, been in leadership roles before, team captain, water polo, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. 2 years of military, marching around, Army, ROTC, whatever.
How did this moment in being forced into this leadership compare to any of your previous experiences, though? Was it something different? What was the hardest part about this one?
No, with the amount of training that I've been getting, the law enforcement, working with Mel, and just this is the career that I'm here. I'm doing this forever, and didn't even faze me. It was just like, okay, you're the guy in the spot now, and that's how it's going to be. The evolution the next year, my third summer, Gary gets the promotion. The boat's still being built. He hates being the beach supervisor. There's a lifeguard supervisor 2 and 1 supervisor, and they give me a temporary upgrade to a supervisor 1 position. So in my third year, I'm already at the next level, and we're there's always one of us working, but we got Bolsa Chica, we got Huntington, and now we have the Cliffs. The Cliffs and north side of the pier. I mean, we're working. There's a lot of tension between us and the city. Always has been. It's a lot, I guess, way better. In the evolving years, it improved. Eventually, that beach went back to the city, but alcohol was permitted on the beach. Started doing law enforcement on the beach. I mean, I saw.
Yeah, not to mention, it's. I mean, people don't realize that the California State Parks Peace Officer permanent lifeguard position is, you're a lifeguard, but you're also a peace officer.
And at the time, it was rare that we were putting on the full uniform. We're in our reds. At first, we had our guns in a bowling bag that they gave us. Eventually that evolved. We had a lockbox in the middle of the vehicle, and always kept a nightstick and handcuffs handy. But making a arrest out of a truck with a seasonal lifeguard.
What a crazy time!
It was crazy. In Huntington, alcohol was. It was that whole north side of the pier was a party zone. I mean, happened on dead bodies in the morning that somebody had been killed and dumped there.
Wow.
Happened on a rape in progress. Just it was intense, and so it was just part of the experience. And dramatic rescues, plane crashes, boats distress. Just again, heavy download, and I'm now a supervisor. And then in the fourth year, Gary's out on the boat, and I'm the full-time lead supervisor. So I spent 4 years total, and I've taken both the civil service exams to get on a promotional list for lifeguard supervisor 1, even though I was getting temporary upgrades. And then I'd qualified with enough time in those temporary to take the lifeguard supervisor 2 level, which at that time was a position at Huntington State Beach, the biggest operation. They were creating one at San Diego Coast, and they were creating a position, an upgraded position at what was called the Pendleton Coast, which was Doheny and San Clemente. It had initially been a lifeguard supervisor 1, but San Onofre had come online in 1971, so the Pendleton Coast expanded to include San Onofre, which was still a very, very primitive operation. Sand stations, and we had a couple towers at the surf beach. I took the exam. I was on the promotional list. There were really only 3-4 people. Bill Kramer, who was already a supervisor at Huntington, could have lateral transferred down, and he was considering it. Bill had worked down there at San Clemente at a much earlier part of his career. But he opted not to take it, and I got the position. In April of 1978, I'd been with the state now for 4 years. I became a lifeguard supervisor 2, chief lifeguard for the Doheny, San Clemente, and San Onofre operation. And it was expanding. Money was being set aside for improvements at San Onofre, the campground. Budget requests, my predecessor down there, Bruce Kranz, had requested to staff it like Huntington State Beach, that there'd be a tower every 250 yards. Well, if you know the trails, there were only 6 trails down, and it's a very remote beach at the trails. It would have been way overkill. We ultimately put 7 towers down on 3 miles of beach.
And this was right when it was all getting started up. Right?
It's really starting to take off in terms of popularity. We'd taken over San Onofre Surf Beach, much to the dismay of the San Onofre Surfing Club that had exclusive access since 1952. And so we had almost a adversarial relationship with the old-time club members, and the fact that the general public was now allowed into the domain that had previously been private. The military, Marines, it's not in their culture to give up ground or land, and they were not happy that Nixon had ordered them to give up the property, and he actually earmarked way more than what had originally been discussed, and it was over 3,000 acres. We had 2,000 inland acres that go almost 4 miles in. The plan was for 3 campgrounds. Ultimately, they built a campground along the bluffs on the Old Coast Highway. And then a secondary one was the San Mateo campground that came in the 1980s. We had a nuclear power plant right in the middle of San Onofre.
What a unique dynamic of all these interplays of this environment that we get tasked with as a lifeguard, right? Like that you're all these different factors and layers to just who congregates in the environment that we're responsible for, right?
The seasonal lifeguards were tasked with being the first responders in the event of a nuclear emergency and everyone had to be evacuated. The seasonal lifeguards were point people on the beach, and we actually had to conduct training with seasonals and anticipation. The layers of preparedness were pretty elaborate when the plant was active.
Yeah.
And in my capacity in middle management, I became the point person for state parks in terms of interjurisdictional operations. So I was attending the monthly meetings with the Orange County Sheriffs, the San Diego County Sheriffs, FBI, Southern California Edison, their own security, and then ultimately Homeland Security. And
as a lifeguard.
I'm the lifeguard in the room. But my insights as to, here's what surrounds your nuclear power plant, and how we're going to make this happen. We have a trail one, we got Surf Beach, and we got to get. So that was a.
Sorry to interrupt, but it just every time you say these such cool little blurbs, I want to ask questions on clarifying some of these. But here you are sitting at a table with the FBI, the nuclear power plant. I mean, a table of a bunch of people, and then your role as a lifeguard. What was that perceived like back in the day at the table? And you kind of alluded to, well, hey, you have almost like this expertise in that environment, because we sit at that environment and watch it every day and are more in tune with it in a way. But what was at that time the take on the lifeguard in the room at this table? Was there a level of respect for that? How did they treat you in that room with those meetings and things? Did they write it off? Like, what was the general aura of these meetings and things back in the day?
I could say with certainty that there was, some skepticism, because the other agencies didn't always send the same people. They had people rotating through, so each time a new face showed up, it was like, lifeguard,
Yeah.
But I established pretty quickly that I was both a lifeguard and a peace officer, and developed a good working relationship. I think I spent 13 or 14 years as the point person for state parks in that capacity, and the people at Southern California Edison very quickly grew to understand that they were lucky that they had somebody that was coming consistently from state parks, as opposed to us sending another. And I did have seconds and thirds, people that I took, so that if I couldn't attend, there was somebody that could at least go and come back and report. But
more or less knew the situation.
And
familiar with the. Were those early connections something that you used later on with San Onofre Foundation, and when those talks were happening as far as the toll road and those kinds of things, having those meetings early on, or is that not the same? But you became, it seems like, this point person for this environment in this area, and I know that's something you started later down the line. Did that help at that point?
It did. Yeah, the connections that I developed with Southern California Edison were of just huge significance when I began putting together the nonprofit San Onofre Parks Foundation, as was the relationship that I had developed with the entire surfing industry. I wrote the policy that allowed surf contests to come to trestles, and I oversaw the implementation of that over the years, and I worked with every single.
And now the Olympics, right?
Well, now the Olympics are coming, and I've already been asked whether I'll sit on a committee or not, and I really don't know that I want to take that on. It's a whole.
Sure.
The WSL, who manages the contest now, have got a very good formula. They're going to be the point people for the Olympics. Our biggest concerns and questions are going to be access and what exactly the beach looks like at the time, and then how many people do you intend to have in your and managing. But state parks, WSL, the Olympic Committee, they're going to be the ones that steer this thing, and the ad hoc committees that the city of San Clemente is putting together. They're looking at it as a boon to their community. But I've got enough on my plate with the foundation. We'll touch on that a little bit down the line. But absolutely, my relationship that I developed with Southern California is, they provided us with grants. And our primary purpose was in support of the education programs in the parks, and they help fund interpret panels throughout the parks, and every year some money for capacity, allowing us to hire a business manager. But so those early encounters. So I arrived in San Clemente in 1978. State House came with the job. My wife and I waited a few more years before we started a family, but eventually we had 3 kids, raised them in the park. It was a nice little enclave of park rangers, maintenance people, and everybody took turns babysitting each other's kids, and it was a very, very idyllic situation. I was on call 24 hours a day, and some years hardly any calls, and some years amazing things happening in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And so I got to oversee growth and expansion. And but in 1982, I thought, well, I'm obviously making a career out of this. I'd been there for 4 years. I said, I've got to take a look here that, the promotional route, it's either, there's only one aquatic specialist, which Eisner was still, I think he was there, a couple more years, but there's a limited promotional route. If I'm going to go into management, I'm going to have to be a park ranger. So in 1982, I took a training assignment, and I moved the entire family, and we moved to Richardson Grove, and I was the chief ranger for that Redwood district. I had 4 major campgrounds. I had the Sinkyone Wilderness on the Lost Coast. And it was, again, another heavy download of opportunity and experience. And it was a great experience. But when my wife and I arrived, and by then we had 2 kids, we'd gone up in March and taken a look, and it was a glorious, beautiful day, and we fell in love with it. And we just said, oh, my goodness, this is spectacular. Come up here and spend a couple of years and then promote and move someplace else, the traditional ranger route, moving on up into management. Mm-hmm. But when we arrived there in June, it rained for a week straight, and there was mold on the walls, and even though they'd freshly painted it, kids couldn't go out. There were no other kids in the park. We're 8 miles from town. It's Garberville, the hub of the Emerald Triangle. Mm-hmm. Dope growing every place in the surrounding area. And now I'm law enforcement, so I'm, I have to look over my shoulder whenever I go in town. But it was a great experience. Traditional camping. I did campfire programs. I led hikes. But I realized I missed the action of the beach. And I'm driving an hour each way to go surfing at the Sinkyone Wilderness every day off, and I just said, this is, yeah, I don't think I want to do this. And so there had been a hiring freeze, and they were unable to fill my position when I left. So there was a vacant. My position was still vacant, and although there were people that were, hopefully in their minds they were in line that they were going to possibly get that position. I had helped state parks out by going up and doing this on a training assignment. I paid my own way up, bought all my uniforms. As the summers headed to a close, I wrote a very detailed explanation that in terms of my own career path, I appreciate this opportunity. I was glad that I was able to help out, but I would like to return to my previous position. And I submitted that request, and it met with a lot of resistance and skepticism from the traditional park management. And Bob Eisner went to bat for me. And by that time, in that first 4 years that I'd been the supervisor, my relationship with Bob had developed. He would come up weekly. We would have coffee. We'd spend hours together on the beach, and so we had a good relationship. And he went to bat for me, and he probably pulled in a few of his chips, and I was allowed to come back. State House was still vacant, moved back in, the same telephone number. And I said, that's it. I know this is my career path. I'm going to utterly and totally commit to lifeguarding, which I did for the following until 2004. So that was 82, 18 plus 4. So 22, next 22 years.
Yeah.
I served as president of the CSLA. I became active in the USLA, heavily involved in the USLA junior lifeguard programs, supporting youth programs. We had some very innovative things that we did at Doheny.
What do you think it was that I'm hearing that you coming back and then was kind of your final stamp on this is official. I'm here. This is where I belong. What do you think was there one defining thing that made you realize that? If so, or what was it? To make that choice.
If anything, the camaraderie and the team, the essence of working with a team that you're all providing this tremendous service. And I'm not taking anything away from what park rangers do, but I recognize lifeguarding. I've used this term, and I know Bruiser likes to use it as well, but it's a sacred trust that we are endowed with skills that allow us to watch over our fellow man in a dangerous environment. They don't even realize how dangerous it is. And to take swift action and to handle and manage potential crises and do it without any fanfare. Service to fellow man. Service to fellow man as a park ranger as well, and service to the environment. And we have all of that service to the environment in the lifeguarding world, but I missed the camaraderie, I did. I missed the action. It was so quiet up there. I did hear one or two firecrackers on the 4th of July, and it was, and I was looking ahead that, gosh, I'm going to spend 3 years in the redwoods. This is way too slow, too sleepy. This is, I've been used to moving at a fairly fast clip, and surrounded by people with this common bond of we're ready to go. We're ready to jump into that hostile environment without hesitation. And I truly had been inspired by all of the experience that I'd had in total, and I realized that I missed it, and I was, I had one shot to go back, and I'm fortunate that I was allowed to, and then take my career and channel it in a positive way on the largest scale that I could. It's just I got joy and satisfaction, I guess, from service. As you give, so shall you receive. And it was just the.
Do you think lifeguarding is unique in that way, in that camaraderie and that action that you're referring to? Or do you think we're biased as lifeguards because we're living that?
Well, I would say, we're biased as lifeguards because it is a unique skill. And I take nothing away from fire and police or any types of service, because they all require skill sets that and commitment and dedication to their fellow man, and challenging the elements. I think fire people have a lot of that same camaraderie. Police have a different kind of camaraderie, and being part of that network. If I identify myself first as I'm a retired peace officer, oh, okay. If I'm talking to a peace officer, if I say, well, I'm a former ocean lifeguard, there's there's depending on what their frame of reference is, but the lifeguarding world to me is unique in that it's that skill set of being able to see and respond properly, and the skills to go out in whatever the elements are. And we've come a long way. The tools that we have now, jet skis, drones, rescue boats, but it still comes down to that basic ability to swim.
I recognize and act.
An advocate that every child should learn to swim by the age of 8. It should be taught in its curriculum in every school in the country. I mean, with only half the population being swimmers, and then you narrow it down to probably less than 10% of the population can swim 100 yards continuously, and then you start narrowing it down. Lifeguards are in a pretty rare, percentage of folks what they can do, and do it without even thinking about it. That skill set is pretty damn unique. So, I knew, okay, I'm here, but it's broad spectrum. I'm also a peace officer, and I've got to wear these two hats, and you got to be good at both of them. So I became a firearms instructor. I said, if I'm going to carry a gun, I want to be as proficient as can be. And I became one of the lead instructors for the department. I wrote the manual on a conversion from what we call wheel guns, revolvers, to using pistols. Of course, agencies everywhere had been making that transition, but state parks was always a step or two behind.
Notoriously.
Yeah. But so then I became one of the lead instructors at our academy, and whatever I was going to do, I wanted to do it as proficiently as possible. And again, help with the credibility when I'm talking with other
Yeah.
law enforcement officers. But I view it as two hats, and today there seems to be a real separation. I mean, there are all the permits are peace officers, but if you're assigned to the beach, okay, you're running a beach operation, but you're still got all the tools to do the law enforcement on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we've replaced rangers in many places, and it's a lifeguard wearing a blue uniform doing what the traditional park ranger would do. At least down at what I see at Doheny, San Clemente, and San Onofre, a lot of other places, and even at Huntington. I mean, there's a real division. You're in the aquatic operation, or you're in the parking lot operation, and the two can cross. Any of the guys can jump in the water, but it's hard to strip all that paraphernalia off.
And it's not fair to put those. That's what's so crazy and unique about the state parks permanent lifeguard position is they are entirely two different jobs requiring two different skill sets. And people don't know that the state parks peace officer can take off the bulletproof vest, the gun belt, and they're still wearing red trunks underneath and then go make a rescue. To have a transition from arresting someone in the same day that you make a boat rescue or do CPR on the beach are two wholly different things. Much like I like to compare firefighter, paramedic, right? Those are also two roles, just the fire suppression side as well as the medicine of a paramedic level.
Right.
And you combine that, it's just crazy to think that all of these single humans are tasked with being really good at both sides of it.
Yeah. That's a huge ask.
For yourself too. So those are two hats at work, but I wanted to touch on a third hat you wear as a father, right? And these things we were talking about, having the unique situation where you grew up in a state house in this environment where you're working and cultivating not just a workplace and leadership, but now you're cultivating a family and kids. Talk to me about kind of how that approach was for you, as far as like you're saying, hey, kids should learn how to swim. They got to be safe around the ocean. You know, you want to instill good camaraderie, good leadership stuff for them as well to make the right decisions. Where did that all kind of play in once you had kids and Steve Long as the father?
Yeah. 3 kids, daughters, the eldest, Heather, Russ is the second, Rusty, and then Greg. And we had 3 kids in 3 years. So they were really close, and they were playmates, if you will, and in that environment, a lot of young kids, same age. So we had a nice little community. As the kids grew up, they got the swimming lessons. The beach was there as the outlet. I mean, we could walk right down, and they were playing in the sand from the time they were toddlers. Once they learned to swim, splashing around with a boogie board, flopping on their belly, and gaining comfort and confidence. And as since they were so close together, when my daughter was 8, Rusty was 7, Greg was 6. No, he was 5. We back it up another year. I started taking them surfing on a soft top, and every Friday we would have beach day after they got out. If all week they'd been good, we were going down to the beach and pushing them in on soft top, and they all 3 took to it. They just so then I started taking them camping in Baja. Every winter I'd take them out of school for a week. Had an old Volkswagen bus. We'd drive down to El Cardon, camp in the dunes, beautiful sand point break, gentle waves, and so that was like the reward. And they education that they received going down to Baja at a very young age, that suddenly saw that life's not all like what we see in Southern California, and developed an appreciation for other cultures. Ultimately, both Rusty and Greg are comfortable in Spanish. Greg is quite fluent, but that early exposure to travel and surfing. They played sports. They played soccer. The boys played Little League. I coached Little League. But they got into junior guards as soon as they could. That was a requirement. And I think Greg even got in a year younger than we normally let kids in. And they were avid. They loved it. But all the time, whenever they had the chance, they wanted to go surfing, and they starting to get a little proficiency at it. They started doing the competitions at I think Greg was 12 and Rusty 13, and my daughter as well. And they did the NSSAs all the way through. My daughter was the state college women's champion in her first year in college. She could have gone on in the early infancies of the women's pro tour, but she was a serious student. The boys, they were having fun doing that, but at age, Greg was 15, Rusty was 16, was their first trip to Todos Santos. They had, on their own, I mean, I like big waves. I was always, if Cottons was breaking, I was out there, second reef. I'm fortunate I've surfed third reef probably half the time. It doesn't break that often. But they, on their own, started seeking out bigger and bigger waves. They wanted to go to Todos, and my daughter was dating a young man, John Walla, went on to be the boat captain, and now he's like a fire captain. But he took us all out there, my daughter and the boys, and on a day that the swell just gradually built. I was in the water too, and we had this experience, and the kids just came back, and they were like vibrating. They're so excited. They'd ridden 15-foot face waves, and it was on. And at any opportunity that they could, they wanted to go to Todos, and that continued right on through high school. Even though they were doing their competitive NSSA, Greg went on to win the national championship and got a sponsorship that opened up the possibility of travel with the company OP, Ocean Pacific. And they didn't necessarily want him to go on the world tour or try and get on the world tour. They wanted him to feel free to search for big waves. And Rusty as well. The two of them, both of them at the time, very, very comparable in terms of their approach to big waves. And so they began traveling the world, but at the same time, taking classes at junior college. Rusty went on to become a lifeguard at Camp Pendleton, did a couple seasons there, handled some heavy stuff on the Marine Corps base. But the opportunities were there, and they were fortunate to begin traveling the world surfing. My daughter went on, got her teaching credential, and later a nursing degree, and the boys parlayed their modest successes. Greg started winning big wave contests. Into this ability to world travel, started going to Puerto Escondido as a kind of a go-to. And then the other one, in 2000, we went to the island of Madeira off of Portugal, and we've been going there ever since. And now Rusty owns property over there, and we spend quite a bit of time in Madeira in Portugal. But that evolved, but all the way back to they did junior guards, and there came a summer where, Dad, we don't want to do junior guards. We just want to go surf lowers every day. And so I said, that's okay. And they were down there with a group of their Grom friends, some really talented surfers, and under the watchful eye of the lifeguards. And they were never the type of kids that were into any mischief, because they knew if they wouldn't be, if there was any kind of penalty, it was going to be, you're not going to go surfing. So, they would hang around the lifeguard shop. They'd hear stories. They were living in that park environment was a real anomaly. I mean, you're living in a small city, but we're living like we're someplace in the country.
Even
so
smaller hub kind of. What was your take on them becoming or not becoming lifeguards, or pressure? A lot of times people think, oh, I want you to do this or that. What was your option with, was it, hey, getting junior guards so you could be safe initially around the ocean and learn all stuff, then they're picking up surfing? But what about on the lifeguard stuff as they're getting older and as a profession? What was you, were you offering that as an option, or?
Well, they knew it was an option, and they certainly could have gone that direction. And as I say, Rusty did. He did 2 years on Camp Pendleton. The reason he chose Pendleton was so he could get into DMJs, the break down there. He had a secondary motivation.
Sure.
Greg, however, began a pretty aggressive travel routine. He did the WQS off and on for 2 years, and it just, the same thing. You go to Margaret River, all the way out to West Oz, and you do a heat, and waves are crap, and you're out. It just wasn't appealing to him. What was appealing was like, okay, we're here. We're going to go up the coast or down the coast, and they were blessed that they had that means. And back here at home, Greg had earned enough money that we bought 2 jet skis, and had a lot of independence whenever we were going to Toto's. I quit surfing, and I would go on the island and do video whenever the guys were there. But and I had a friend, we call him Captain Bob, who had been in a serious traffic accident, and the city of Irvine had been found at fault for poor traffic engineering. He received a settlement. One of the things he did, he loved watching the kids surf. He bought a boat that we started taking to Totos. We'd go down, keep the boat in the harbor at El Corral, or sometimes we'd put it in the water at San Diego and go down the coast. So Captain Bob had this boat, and it had the range, and we went on, I think, maybe 5 or 6 total Cortez Bank missions on that boat, and so having the means to do it, because Cortez is a huge production to go and surf. Toto's not that much, but they made kind of their mission was that we're going to be on Totos for every swell that we can, and they were that passionate about it. Rusty did an internship at Surfer Journal. A fabulous writer. He went on to produce a coffee table book that chronicled the 10 years of big wave surfing from 2005 to 2015, kind of the evolution of it, going from the rabid toe-in spark that happened in the early 2000s back to the Renaissance of let's see how big we can paddle.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's gone to work for Reef and is still one of their salespeople.
How much of these opportunities do you think came from having that origin, that state house, being at the beach, father as a lifeguard? I mean, those early things, would it have been different if you had gone somewhere else, obviously, or done a different job? Or do you think it still would have been the same?
Clearly, having the beach as their backyard and the blessings and support of my wife and me. I mean, she didn't want to watch them riding big waves. She just wanted to know when they were back safe and sound on the.
As most moms probably would.
Yeah, yeah. But they were good students. They took care of business. Surfing was the passion, and again, they were very fortunate as doors opened that they were able to walk through and have traveled the world.
I mean, to me, just I guess I selfishly correlate it to, but correct me if I'm wrong, doing the lifeguard project, being a lifeguard, seeing all the ways that people were influenced by lifeguarding,
Mm-hmm.
that cloth that is woven through the community of water, ocean safety, being in the beach environment, lifeguards, camaraderie, those things you spoke about, to me are metaphors for broader life. And I think it's a unique profession in that way, that it affords these opportunities, these insights, especially like what you're saying, growing up for your kids, right? And then look at where they've pushed that to certain levels. But I feel like other professions don't carry the same weight. And once again, not putting anything down, it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
That lifeguarding touches closer to our existence as humans, care and service for your fellow neighbor, teaching you responsibility at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And here, I mean, when I hear you speak about these stories and stuff, it almost seems like your life path and the serendipity in the early part leading up to, the family that you've raised, to your entire kind of career, it speaks volumes to that. And it's a real life living example to that most people, when they say, oh, you just check out chicks and hang out at the beach. No, it's look at this. And I think as I hear you speaking on the subject, it really is, once again, I'm biased.
Okay.
But I feel like that lifeguarding affords us this potential opportunity. And not everyone takes it to that extreme, but I feel like your story is an example of that.
Indeed. I'm fond of saying that I've been blessed. It happened. I was given the opportunity, and as the family grew, they shared in that blessing. It was a great environment, the people that we were around. But going right back to the words life and guard. I mean, it's a pretty high calling. I had somebody, though, less than a month ago say to me, I don't know what lifeguards do. I've never seen them do anything. Well, how long have you watched? Well, I see them in the tower, and all they're doing is looking around. And I said, okay, well, there's a lot more to it than that. But yeah, there is a lot of downtime. My grandson is now a city lifeguard at 16 at San Clemente City, and I see him almost every day, and I ask him about it. And he says, "That was really boring today." But every once in a while, yeah, okay, I got in the water today. It was a good prevent. It could have turned it into a real one. And he's only been working two weeks, but he's much more animated, I think, than some of his 16-year-old friends that are maybe working at Chick-fil-A or whatever, and that he's enthralled by the older guys that are telling him stories and giving him encouragement. Again, when we're called to action and it happens, and there may not even be a thank you at the other end, except your associates all know, and you're going to get validation from them. And it's not even about the accolades and the end. It's about the service. And yeah, they were directly steeped in it. I mean, they saw it every day. Oh, Dad got called out last night at 2:00 and didn't come out till 11 o'clock in the morning. And what was that one? And so, yeah, that rubbed off on him. And yeah. Now Greg is really in the same business. I mean, as an educator with the programs, and that's a niche that was definitely needed being filled, giving people the tools and confidence to when a lot of surfers in the world, having some basic concepts of self-rescue and being able to help somebody else in the water. But
on that subject too, obviously, I mean, Greg's obviously one of the most premier big wave riders to this day right now. I mean, in our modern world of surfing, pushing those limits and getting to that point of safety, coming in with brag and all that stuff that he's involved with. What was that process like for you? I mean, going to Todos and doing all that, being there in the early days, and then when he had his event where he almost drowned.
Mm-hmm.
As a father, lifeguard perspective, that kind of thing, what kind of chord did that strike when that happened?
Yeah, that particular incident, I was going to go on the trip, but the charter on these boats, there's a capacity that a captain has to abide by. You can only put so many people on it. They got photographers, they got an ER doc or paramedic or somebody that's coming now always on the Cortez missions. Stack up with really good rescue professionals, jet ski drivers that are dedicated to what they're doing. So it came down to one slot, and I said, "Hey, no problem. I'll stay home." I know they got a satellite phone on board the boat, and Rusty was on that same trip, and I'm glad that I was actually on this side, so that when the incident did happen, the boys know it's no bullshit when this, they got a call to home to say something's happened. It's very, very concise message, and as few words as possible, and get it across right away. So I get the call from Rusty. Immediately, Rusty's satellite phone. Okay, yeah. Greg's had an accident. He may have a punctured lung. He's okay. He's stable on the boat. That's what I need to know first. I said, okay, what's the procedure? Coast Guard has been summoned, but it's going to be an hour because the helo's on another mission. They got to close that one in at least an hour. I said, okay, great. Call me back when you have a little more. I didn't even ask on how it happened on the initial one. I just went totally into incident command. Called
work mode.
Yeah, Coast Guard dispatch. Identified myself, and I asked what's the ETA on the helicopter and where they're going to land. And so I got an idea where Greg will be transported to, and made my way down to San Diego. So I was there when he came in. So that's what I do when there's something like that. And Rusty had his incident where he got burned seriously down in Porto. It was the same thing. Phone call with, shortest fuse. Rusty's had an accident. He's burned. He's in the hospital right now. And I said, okay, I need more data. When you can get the a little clarification. And then I said he's going to need to be evacuated. I'll go to work on that and set simultaneous. Either I'm flying down there, or I'm getting the jet chartered. And in the next hour, had both options, either a ticket or the jet charter. Once I was on board with the jet charter, then I said I don't need to go down there. I want to be here when he lands, and taken to Scripps to the burn ward. So just reverting totally to incident command
training in lifeguard world.
And keeping my wife,
I'm guessing she didn't revert to that same approach.
She relied on me to keep it on that even keel. So, I'm glad that it worked out that I was here on the receiving end, as opposed to I would have been sitting out on the boat, worrying. And there's a whole backstory to that entire episode. I mean, it's unfortunate what transpired, how the wipeout came about, but it was a chunky. Rusty said he was not even going to get off the boat, but he opted to do water safety, and there was a great team. I mean, the boat stayed out overnight, and they surfed the next morning, but he backed the boat over 2 jet skis. None of the story ever came out. I don't know if I should get me coming out now. If I'd been on the boat, I would have had to arrest the guy.
Sure. But these are the little, I guess, moving it away from so much the story, the learning lesson, or the you're applying these life skills that are universal, no matter where you are, right? As a lifeguard, as a father, you came from this experience. You've dealt with this stuff before. The skills that are presented to us, no matter where you are, you're able to tap into that,
right,
and make the situation better, which is what we're trained to do. And then I see a bit of that because I got to be down there with him in Puerto when the foundation did the brag event down there with the locals, take photos down there. So I got to watch the whole thing for the first time, and I felt like I was back at teaching lifeguard training up here. So it's cool to see the similar essence coming from 2 different worlds, meeting back at the point of we need to help each other, we need to be safe, and we need to look out for one another to, keep pushing these limits and these things. But it came almost full circle from your background to going from, pushing the limits of surfing, then coming right back to, okay, but the root of life, like you said, life and guard, is still, we all want to walk away alive and do the thing and do it well, but do it safely. So that was cool to see that, kind of having your kids do that same thing, like meeting in a similar point in a way, right?
Yeah.
Philosophically or whatnot.
Yep.
In your time being a lifeguard and looking back, how do you think the profession has changed over the years, and for the better, for the worse, or just any comments on that as a whole and what you've seen from when you started to now and looking back?
I would say there, at least from my perspective, and I've been out for 21 years now. 17 years retired, but the last 4 years I was a park superintendent. And yes, I had lifeguard operations underneath me. But I would say that the mutual respect that lifeguards have for each other has gone up substantially. Lifeguards are very, very competitive, and there was always attitude and even chip on the shoulder type of attitude. In 1995, LA County walks off the beaches because the state isn't going to give them money, and the state mobilized what I called the Foreign Legion of lifeguarding. We resurrected guys that had very checkered careers, and they came
part of that.
They came to the
right?
call. Yeah, I was co-chief along with Kirk Sturm, and we guarded 14 million people that summer, no drownings. And LA County realized that if they didn't change, and that was when they were going through the transition to become part of the fire department. I remember going up to county to meet with the guys, separate meetings with the chief, but I went up one evening to meet with the Lifeguard Association, and we're in Santa Monica. We're in their shop, and there's only a couple of chairs, and I'm looking for where I'm supposed to sit. And they had some, mats for when you're doing exercise. And they said, "Sit. You can sit on those." And I said, "I'm not here as an adversary, and this is not something that the state lifeguards want to do. We're just being ordered to do this. We're not the
And this was up in the beaches, the state beaches in LA. Give me just a little backstory for people who don't know exactly what you're talking about prior to continuing. Sorry.
Within LA County, within the county of Los Angeles, there are state beaches. Will Rogers State Beach, Dockweiler State Beach, used to be Manhattan State Beach. All of these were state-owned, but they were operated by the county of Los Angeles through what's called an operating agreement. Right here in Orange County, it's Corona del Mar State Beach, but it's operated by the city of Newport Beach. City collects the parking revenue. There's no exchange of money. State's not paying them to do it. Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors and whomever, well, it was actually the fire department, said, we want the state to pay us to lifeguard them, these state beaches. Even though we have an operating agreement and we're taking the money from the parking lot, we have to clean the beaches and we want money from the state. And the state says, we're not going to do it. We're going to stick with the agreements that we have. And LA County said, well, if you don't give us the money, we're going to take our lifeguards off the beach and we're going to quit cleaning the beaches. And the state of California, Department of Parks and Recreation, was ordered by the governor. Okay, they're going to go. We're going to put lifeguards there. We had 6 months to prepare. However, the county had been rattling these sabers for over 15 years. It has come up a number of times. So there had actually been contingency plans made well in advance. But we had 6 months to put together an operation. We took 2 rescue boats up there. We had 5 or 6 extra trainings. We like I say, we brought people back. We even hired some guards from New Zealand, Florida, wherever we could get them. And it was the Foreign Legion, and it was seat of the pants at first. I lived the whole summer in a residence inn. We had to develop a call out protocol for middle of the night stuff, and we're now doing law enforcement on the beach. It was another aspect of it. And it turned out, hey, the city of Manhattan really liked this. And when we finally left, what as it evolved, all of a sudden the county realized that the state's done this. They're here. I mean, we were all the way up to Topanga, and it just we had three zones, but and I was told, you're going to be staying there. You're going to be chief lifeguard in Los Angeles County if they don't rectify this. And the county and the county lifeguards realized that it was truly going to happen, and they lobbied hard, and the county backed off. We pulled out right after Labor Day and turned it over. The guys left 2,000 crickets in the headquarters at when we moved in, we got all the towers that were there. I hate to say this, but the county guys cut the lines to every single tower before we moved in. And that level of animosity, we're fellow lifeguards. We're coming here to do the job because the politics. And back to the original question, the level of respect afterwards, it became a mutual respect, and over time, I think also through the national and interaction, that there is a higher level of this mutual respect. We're all fellow lifeguards. We're all in the same business. It's not a competition. It's not like who can get to the rescue quicker on the borders. It's like, okay, send both the guys, and at least I hope that's the case. I get that feeling that I guess
So leaving though, you guys left a bunch of crickets in the headquarters.
They left crickets. Just we weren't going to cut any phone lines, but we left crickets so that they walk in the door, they were hopping around and making noise and all that. They had to fumigate the building. That was our little
a little friendly interchange.
Yeah.
No, but it's just these are the historical growing pains, and like you said, I think that's part of why the project too. I want to have stories that tell our history, but then show where we're moving forward to. And I think I love that you said that. I think that mutual respect has gone up, where we see ourselves more as lifeguards together, doing the same profession, fighting the same cause. Not you're on this side of the boundary, I'm on this side of the boundary. You're wearing this colored patch, I'm wearing this colored patch. I think that stuff is going away a lot, and a lot of that has changed in the modern world with that, and as it should, right? We're doing the same job, and it's about the greater good. There's always going to be competition and drama in any workplace.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think this profession has the least, and at least also the least amount of room to mess with that stuff. Because in the end, it's about if you're distracting yourself from the service that you're supposed to provide, that has real consequences too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's crazy. I love that story about the crickets though too. That's also fun. Just kind of slowly wrapping it up too. In this wealth of knowledge that you possess, and having gone through all these times and experiences, what a unique career you had too. I mean, just from origin to that fast track, and then just having circled a huge amount of experience there. What's advice that you would give if you could be standing in the tower now, let's say with your grandson or with another young guard, that you would want to leave with them, or talk about the profession moving forward, right? And in their careers and in the future of lifeguarding, what's something you would want to leave behind for them as advice?
I would. I guess we can look at it from perspective with my grandson, because I have the conversations with him. And his dad, earlier marriage, is a firefighter, wildland firefighter, captain, and been with the Forest Service for 20-something years. So he's kind of leaning maybe that direction, but I just, without any kind of pressure, just said that, hey, take it a year at a time, and you're going to do this. You're planning to go to college, great part-time job, and never say never. yeah, the state, you got to do the law enforcement thing, and that's a huge extra responsibility, and for some people, that's a deterrent. They just plainly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but uh, the message is learn from your elders, and you're going to meet every kind of personality, and you're going to find all different kinds of leadership approaches. Um, take the best of it, and the stuff that you don't see eye to eye with, or whatever. I always tell Nate, my grandson, keep your mouth shut and head down and listen, and it'll evolve. So again, I've been out 21 years. The last 4 years, I was the park superintendent for those same 3 parks, and suddenly I was the city manager, chief of police, and then since then I was asked to start the nonprofit as a voice for the community, and our biggest challenge was the fact that San Onofre was on leased land from the military. So we worked for close to 15 years on a task force to get the outcome that San Onofre has a lease extension for 25 years. So I'm still heavily engaged with state parks. I was engaged during the toll road. I again was blessed. I had a wonderful career, wonderful opportunities. Um, it's there for the making and for the taking. And I talk to guards now that are on the beach, that are on their career path. How long you've been a permanent, and where you been, and what's your aspirations. And a lot of them that end up down there, they're just said, I'm already in paradise. I love it here. But with the state, and that's anybody that has any aspirations to go see another part of the state, man, there are so many varieties of places that you could work. We're all the way up on the Mendocino coast and inland bodies of water. And a lot of these places, really takes a unique person that is suited to those locations. So, again,
That is the unique part of the California State Parks lifeguard services, that you can go and transfer to the rainforests of Northern California coastline, to the coastal desert in Southern California, where there's thousands of people on the beach, to an inland reservoir that has a whole different gamut of stuff. And it really is, it shows not to mention how the safety and law enforcement aspects of those two combined roles continuously require a unique approach to each diverse spot, right? It's insane. It really is. I mean, there's nothing like it.
There's something for everyone. You want to specialize someplace, there's a slot someplace, and you got to play the cards in the game as it evolves. But I hear stories of, I met a guy recently, and how long you've been a permanent? A year and a half, and you're here working at San Clemente, San Onofre. He says, yeah, I was at Huntington for a year and a couple of months, and slot came up, and I'm assigned to the patrol. They virtually replaced all the rangers, but he says, I love it. He says, I'm patrolling the beach. I get PT. I out there going for a surf. And we got my reds on. So seize the opportunity, and again, I was blessed, and I thank everyone along the way that help make it possible, and the support of the team. My philosophy was allow people to grow and be as big as they choose to be, and I let them know that. I said, here are the guidelines. You just stay in between here, and we're fine. If you step out, I'll be talking with you and getting you back in here. And if you can't stay in here, I'll show you the door. But it's really easy to go down the path and find your space and grow to be as big as you want. And you may only do this for a year or two or 5, but you're going to be a lifeguard for life. Your eyes will never change. I can't go on the beach without Dad on the. So
it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it is. My wife says, "Why don't you ever like to walk on the beach trail?" Because my eyes are out there.
And you're still doing it. You're still involved. And I don't want to end the conversation without getting your take on the toll road thing and the San Onofre Foundation as well. And that whole issue, we could do a whole separate podcast just on that, but give me the once over, because that was something that was almost extra, right? That you took on besides as stewardship of the environment that you worked in, and you're still very much involved. Now, even with being asked to be on boards for the Olympics coming into there, so, I mean, you're like the local expert in that zone. And I know you probably don't want me to say that out loud, but you do possess a certain amount of time you've invested in motivation towards preserving that environment as well. Can you just touch on that before?
Yeah, and again with the Olympics, I have enough on my plate, and there are very, very competent people that will steer that, and it's really between the entities, state parks, the WSL, and the Olympic Committee, with some obvious interconnection with the city of San Clemente. But I was there from the 78 onward. So the entire toll road controversy, I was part of middle management and all the internal discussions that we had at the level of the park. When I became the park superintendent the last 4 years, I reported to a district superintendent, and together we had absolute gag order that went all the way to the governor's office that we were not to speak negatively. The governor had at first been neutral and then was supportive of it. So state parks, even though our job is to protect the park, weren't allowed to speak. We could provide information, just that, yes, there's a toll road, this is what they plan on doing, but no opinion, even though I had very strong opinions. When I retired, that gag came off, and the first place I spoke was at the Del Mar Fairgrounds at the Department of Commerce hearings, and there were 3,000 people there. And I showed up and I said, I just retired from state parks and the gag's off, so now I can tell you what my feelings are and what the feelings are from within state parks, even though they're not here. The director of state parks should be here making this speech. So I got a standing ovation at the end. They cut the mic off before I was done, and I kept yelling. I didn't know how to talk to lifeguards, a big crowd of them, and I finished my speech with this. We're doing this for all the future generations. But the toll road issue came to, thankfully, its demise. But before I retired, I had announced I was retiring. In the last 6 months, I was given the task. I was asked to start a nonprofit in support of the two parks, San Clemente and San Onofre. All over state parks, they have what are called cooperative associations. They're nonprofits that have an exclusive contract with the California park system to help raise money for education and interpretation. The first place money gets cut from state park budgets. They got to keep the lights on. They got to put gas in the trucks. They got to pay the staff. The the neat stuff that we do, which is the storytelling, gets cut. So these nonprofits raise money in support of that. We help provide staff. We run a visitor center. We do lecture series. Put the educational panels out there. Bring school kids in. All of those neat things that we're supporting. But the other part was being a voice for the community. We're limited in how much political activism we could take, but there were visionaries in state parks that knew, ultimately with San Onofre, we were leasing the land. It was a 50-year lease that Nixon had set in motion, was going to expire, and that the public needed a voice. We, the San Onofre Parks Foundation, have been that voice. As I say, we were on a task force. The group that I was communicating with reached all the way into the Pentagon that sat on this task force. And we were credited with shaping the outcome. We were told that had we not, the San Onofre Parks Foundation, been gently pushing from below, there would have been a completely different outcome than what transpired. So we were validated in that regard, and now our task has become beach access and preservation. When the nuclear power plant is finally dismantled, all of that land will revert back to the military and what is the intended use. And we're working with the military, we're working with state parks, we're working with Surfrider Foundation, and we have a coalition that is already talking design concepts of what it could look like down there, because the beach is disappearing. We're going to lose access into the surf beach. We're losing access down at the bluffs. There used to be 7 trails. Now there are only 3 that are consistently open. And this is the next evolution of public having input. So I keep saying I'm going to retire. But it's in my DNA. Again, I was blessed. So yeah, I'll keep going until they scatter my ashes and cottons.
Yeah, no lack of motivation or momentum, that's for sure. But that's the way, right? That's the way we
labor of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else that I didn't ask or you want to put out into the world, or thoughts?
No, I ran on there probably a lot more than necessary, but I keep going back to count my blessings and very thankful. Worked with great people, and the job gave back. Just the rewards of seeing people recreating, and I break that word down into recreate. They come to the park to be renewed, and in so many ways, and every park. I mean, the state park system is fabulous. Not without its warts and blemishes, but a great place for a career. I encourage anybody that has got aspirations. Something there for everybody. Yeah. Yep.
Right on, Steve. Well, that's all I got for you. That's for sure. Thanks so much for taking the time and
my
spending
pleasure,
the time with me and talking about lifeguarding. And it's cool because I think, like you said, those early influences for me, stuff that brought me to this point. And it's cool to be able to have, the lifeguards these days with the technology we have and things. I mean, they can take this conversation and it could be in all the towers, and they get the same inspiration that I'm able to have here with you in person. So, and I think that's where our lifeguard culture is passed down and valuable.
So what we captured here, where does it go? What was it? Were you posting this someplace on out there in the world?
Yeah, it'll go on Spotify, or I'll put it on YouTube too. And
right. Cool.
People access it as they please or not, whichever. But I like to eternalize the.
Well, I got to give a shout out to my band and my bandmates.
I know, I didn't even have a chance.
Yeah. I got Mike Broussard on lead vocals, Eddie Vadroska is our guitar, Denny Stover on bass, Adam Wright on drums, and I'm the keyboards. And we've been playing together since 1978. Not in this complete incarnation, but we'll be at the Lifeguard anniversary.
That's right, the 75th.
Yeah, on night one.
The Lifeguard Legend Band. That's what it is.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't even get a chance to touch in all of that. Like I said, we could spend 2 days
just there
covering all the subjects.
Yeah.
But well, thanks so much, Steve. I think
my pleasure. And thank you. Yeah.